It's been 2 years. 2 years since that quiet Tuesday night, a knock on the bathroom door that changed everything. Since everything I thought I knew, everything I believed was right, got twisted into something I can't even say out loud. 2 years, since I crossed a line I can never uncross. They say some moments never leave you. No matter how much time passes, no matter how hard you try to bury them, they stay. Like ghosts, whispering, reminding, pulling you back. I still wake up in the middle of the night, sweating, my heart pounding like it's trying to escape my chest. And when I look in the mirror, I barely recognize the person staring back at me. Because I know what I did. And I know what she did too. You think you know where this story is going. You think you've heard it all before. But I promise you, you don't. And I need you to understand, this is not just another story. This is the kind of truth that makes you question everything. The kind that makes you wonder, if you were in my shoes, if you felt what I felt, would you have done anything different? Let me warn you, this is not for the faint of heart. And once you hear it, you won't be able to unhear it. Before we go any further, I need to ask you something. Have you ever had a moment in your life where everything shifted? Where 1 second, everything felt normal, and the next, nothing would ever be the same? If you have, then you know. You know that feeling, that sickening, heart-racing, time-freezing moment when your reality splits in half, and you realize, you're about to do something you can never take back. That's what happened to me. And it happened in the last place I ever expected. But before I tell you everything, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Because some stories, some truths, are too shocking to ignore. And if you think this one is bad, just wait. I grew up in a house where silence was louder than words. Where people existed under the same roof but lived separate lives. Where the air was thick with things we never said, feelings we never acknowledged, and a loneliness so deep, it felt like a second skin. My father, he was there, but he wasn't. A shadow in the background of my life. He wasn't cruel, wasn't violent, wasn't anything, really. Just, absent. He went to work. He came home. He ate his dinner. And then he disappeared into his world, the couch, the news, his own thoughts. He never looked at me for too long. Never asked how I was. Never noticed when I was struggling, when I was breaking. To him, I was just, there. And my mother? She was different once. I remember when I was little, how her voice used to be warm. How she used to pull me close, run her fingers through my hair, tell me I was her world. I remember how she used to hum while she cooked, how she'd smile at me like I was the only thing that mattered. But people change. And somewhere along the way, she stopped humming. Stopped smiling. Stopped looking at me like she saw me. It happened so slowly I almost didn't notice. Until one day, I did. And by then, it was too late. She started moving differently. Not in the way people do when they grow older, but in the way people do when they've given up. When they're still breathing, but something inside them has already died. She'd sit at the kitchen table, staring into space, fingers tracing circles on the countertop. Her eyes would flicker to my father, just for a second, but he never looked back. And I knew what she was thinking. I knew because I was thinking it too. We were all just, existing. Trapped in the same house, pretending everything was fine. But it wasn't. And I think, deep down, we all knew it. The bathroom was always just a bathroom. A place of routine. A place where you go to wash the day away, to be alone, to close the door and exist in your own space for a little while. It was nothing special. Nothing strange. Just a room with a mirror, a sink, a shower, and a door that separated the outside world from the small, intimate moments you never thought twice about. Until it wasn't. I always thought the bathroom was just a place to wash away the dirt of the day. I never imagined it would become the place where everything changed. It was just a normal night. At least, it should have been. I don't even remember why I walked in. Maybe I needed something. Maybe it was just habit. Maybe it was something else entirely, something I can't name. Either way, I pushed the door open without thinking. Without knocking. Without realizing, that night would never feel normal again. She was standing by the sink, her back to me. The mirror was fogged up from the steam, the air damp and heavy. She didn't turn around right away. Didn't acknowledge me immediately. She just stood there, one hand resting on the counter, the other adjusting her robe, like she'd been lost in thought before I walked in. And for some reason, that detail stuck with me. Like I had interrupted something. Like she had been somewhere else in her mind, and I had pulled her back without meaning to. She glanced at me through the mirror, her expression unreadable at first. Then, she smiled, small, tired. But there was something else behind it. Something I didn't understand. Not yet. Hey, she said. Just that. Simple. Casual. Like nothing was out of the ordinary. But something was. I don't know why I felt so aware of myself in that moment. The way the warm air clung to my skin. The way my heartbeat felt, louder, somehow. I had walked into that bathroom 100 times before. This was no different. And yet, everything felt different. I told myself it was just in my head. That I was tired. That I was overthinking. But then she turned around. And that's when I knew. Something was happening. Something I couldn't name yet, but something I could feel. It was the way she looked at me. Not in an obvious way. Not in a way that anyone else would have noticed. But I noticed. Because when you live in silence for so long, you learn to pick up on the things that aren't said. You learn to read between the lines. And in that moment, I was reading something I didn't know how to process. Her eyes lingered too long. Not in a way that screamed anything inappropriate. No. It was more subtle than that. More dangerous than that. It was the kind of glance that holds weight, like a thought that was never meant to surface, but did anyway. Like something slipping through the cracks before it could be swallowed back down. I should have looked away. I should have said something light-hearted, something to break whatever was settling between us. But I didn't. And neither did she. Then, she spoke again. And it wasn't the words that made my stomach twist, it was the way she said them. You've grown up so much. It was a harmless statement. A normal observation. But why did it feel like more? I forced a small laugh, shrugged. Yeah, I guess. I wanted to move on. I wanted to act like I didn't feel something shift in the air between us. But then she reached for her towel, adjusting it slightly, and for a split second, just a split second, her fingers brushed against my arm. It was nothing. It was everything. She didn't pull away too fast, but she also didn't linger. It was the kind of touch that could have meant nothing. That should have meant nothing. But my skin burned where she touched me. And I hated that I noticed. The silence stretched between us, thick, suffocating. My heart was in my throat, my mind racing with thoughts I couldn't hold on to. I needed to leave. I needed to walk out of that bathroom and forget whatever strange moment had just passed between us. But I didn't move. I didn't know why. And then she said something that made my breath catch. Do you ever feel lonely? It was the way she said it. Like she already knew the answer. Like she wasn't really asking about me at all. I swallowed hard. My throat felt dry. I don't know. She studied me for a moment, then nodded, almost to herself. Almost like she understood something I didn't. Or maybe something I did, but refused to say. Then, just as quickly as it had started, the moment passed. She turned back to the mirror, exhaled, and reached for her hairbrush. Just like that, it was over. Or at least, it should have been. I left the bathroom, but I didn't feel like I had really left. I felt like something had followed me out. Something I couldn't name, couldn't shake. And as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop replaying that moment. That glance. That touch. That question. Was I imagining this? Was it the loneliness talking? Or was something really happening? It's my mother. This is normal. It's just a conversation. Just a glance. Just a question. Then why can't I stop thinking about it? I turn onto my side, staring at the wall, trying to push it away. Trying to let it go. But every time I close my eyes, I'm back in that bathroom. Back in that moment. The way she looked at me. The way her voice shifted when she asked if I ever felt lonely. The way my skin felt electric when her fingers brushed against my arm. I keep telling myself it was nothing. That I imagined it. That I'm making something out of nothing. But my body betrays me. My stomach twists every time I remember that moment. My chest tightens. My pulse quickens. It lingers in the back of my mind like a song I can't turn off. She was just being affectionate. Right? It's normal. Parents say things like that all the time. They ask about your feelings. They check in. Maybe I'm the one making this weird. Maybe it's just me. But deep down, I know it isn't. Because I've lived in this house my entire life, and I know the difference between normal and whatever that was. The next morning, I tell myself it's over. That it was just a passing moment. That I'll forget it by the time the day is done. But then I see her. She's sitting at the kitchen table, reading something on her phone. Her hair is still damp from the shower. Her robe is pulled tighter today, like she's shielding herself from something. Or maybe, from me. She looks up when I walk in, and for a second, I swear I see something flicker across her face. Something unsure. Hesitant. But then she smiles, and it's gone. Like nothing happened. Like she's already decided we won't talk about it. Good. That's what I want, right? But when she hands me my coffee, her fingers brush against mine again. And even though I tell myself not to, I look at her. And she's already looking at me. Neither of us say anything. It's barely a second. Just a flicker. Just a moment. But it's there. And now I know I wasn't imagining it. I pull my hand away first. I clear my throat, mumble something about needing to get ready, and I leave. I don't look back. I don't let myself. Something we both know but won't say. Something stretching between us, growing tighter with every unspoken thought, every second of hesitation, every pause that lasts just a little too long. And the worst part? I don't know if I want her to stop. I tell myself I do. I need to. This is wrong. It's wrong, isn't it? But then why does my chest tighten when I see her walk past? Why do I hold my breath when I hear her footsteps outside my door? Why do I notice the way her perfume lingers in the hallway? Why do I find myself listening for her voice, even when I don't mean to? And why do I feel like she's waiting for something too? I should have left it alone. I should have pulled away, shut it down, put distance between us before it was too late. But I didn't. And neither did she. It didn't stop. The looks. The small touches. The moments that stretched too long. They didn't stop. If anything, they got worse. Maybe it was because we never talked about it. Maybe it was because we both knew something was shifting but neither of us wanted to be the first to name it. Maybe it was because some things don't need words to grow. They just do. I stopped avoiding her. Or maybe I stopped trying. Because no matter what I did, she was always there. In the kitchen when I walked in. In the hallway just as I was passing by. Sitting too close on the couch when there was plenty of space to sit somewhere else. Reaching for something at the same time I did, fingers brushing, hesitation lingering. And it should have been nothing. It should have been forgettable. But it wasn't. Because every time, I felt it. That shift. That pause. That silent, unspoken thing hanging between us like a thread stretched too tight. It happened so gradually, so subtly, that I almost didn't notice how much had changed. How different things felt. Until that night. I don't know why I hesitated at the doorway. Maybe some part of me already knew what was about to happen. Maybe some part of me wanted to turn around. But I didn't. She saw me before I could decide. And then she did something she had never done before. She closed the door. It was small. A simple action. But in that moment, it felt like everything. She turned around slowly, eyes searching mine. Not hesitant. Not afraid. Just, waiting. "Can we talk?" she asked. My throat felt dry. My hands felt too still at my sides. I forced a nod, because I didn't trust my voice. She took a step closer. Just one. But it felt like too much. I feel like. I don't know. She exhaled, running a hand through her damp hair. Lately, things have been different between us. Have you noticed? I could have lied. I could have shaken my head and walked out. I could have laughed it off, made it something small, something forgettable. But I didn't. Because I had noticed. And we both knew it. Yeah, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to say more. Like she was waiting for me to stop her, to pull away, to end whatever was happening before it could go any further. But I didn't move. And neither did she. Her hand lifted, just a fraction, just enough that for one terrifying second, I thought she was going to touch my face. But she stopped. Let it fall. As if she had caught herself too late. I don't know how long we stood there, caught in whatever this was. I don't know how many seconds passed, how many times my mind screamed at me to step back, to say something, to end it before. "I don't want things to be weird between us," she said softly. Too late. Because things were already weird. And we both knew it. I should have said something. Should have told her it was fine, that we should forget it, that we should just go back to normal. But I didn't want to. And I hated myself for that. She didn't move closer, but she didn't step back either. We were standing too close, in a space that had never felt small before but suddenly did. And I realized something that made my stomach twist. I wasn't afraid of what she would do. I was afraid of what I wouldn't stop. This was the moment. The moment I could have walked away. The moment I could have turned my back and made it all disappear. But I didn't. And neither did she. And that was the beginning of the end. I should have left. I should have walked out, shut the door, forced my feet to move, done anything but stand there. But I didn't. And neither did she. The space between us had never felt so small. The walls pressing in, the air thick with something I didn't have a name for. My heart was pounding. Too loud. Too fast. Like it knew what was coming before I did. And then it happened. A touch. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some grand, deliberate act. It was soft. Gentle. The kind of touch that could have been brushed off as an accident if it weren't for the way she didn't pull away. Her fingers, warm, barely there, trailing down my arm. A whisper of contact, but it might as well have been a lightning strike. I froze. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to move. To step back. To break the moment before it could become something I couldn't undo. But I couldn't. I didn't. Because my mind wasn't working anymore. My thoughts weren't my own. The world had gone quiet, except for the sound of my heartbeat, hammering in my ears. And then, the whisper. Her voice, soft, almost hesitant. But there was something else in it too. Something dangerous. You're so different now. My stomach dropped. My breath caught in my throat. My body felt like it didn't belong to me anymore. This wasn't happening. This wasn't real. This was just another moment that would pass, another misunderstanding that I could lock away, never think about again. I could still fix this. I could still fix this. But I didn't move. Because a part of me, some terrible, broken part of me, didn't want to. Then she reached up. Fingertips grazing my jaw. A touch so light it could have been imagined. Should have been imagined. But it wasn't. That was the moment. The moment everything changed. I don't remember breathing. I don't remember blinking. I don't remember anything except the way my skin burned where she touched me, the way the world seemed to tilt under my feet, the way I felt like I was drowning in something I didn't understand. And then. I did move. Not away. Not back. Just a slight shift, toward her. And in that instant, I saw it in her eyes. The realization. The understanding. The same fear I felt clawing at my throat. But neither of us stopped. Not yet. And then the door creaked in the hallway. A shadow passing by. A reminder that the world still existed beyond these walls. Reality slammed into me like a freight train. I jerked back, breath shuddering, mind spinning. My pulse was a drum in my ears, loud, relentless, accusing. She pulled away too, quickly, sharply, like she had just realized what she had done. Like we had both just woken up from something we didn't know we were lost in. Our eyes met in the mirror. And for the first time, I saw it. The horror. The guilt. The realization of what had just happened. We can't pretend this didn't happen. But we would try. And that was the worst part of all. I thought I could pretend. I thought if I woke up, got dressed, came downstairs, and sat at the table like I did every other day, everything would feel normal again. But it didn't. Because nothing was normal anymore. The room felt smaller. The air felt heavier. And across from me, she sat, my mother, staring at her plate, not touching her food, not looking at me. She hadn't said a word since I walked in. She didn't have to. The silence was enough. The way her hands gripped the edge of the table just a little too tight. The way she barely moved, barely breathed. The way she wouldn't meet my eyes. It was like she thought if she didn't look at me, none of it had happened. Like we could both just erase it. I stole a glance at my father. He was eating, lost in his own world, completely unaware of the war raging inside this house. Inside me. He didn't see the way she flinched when my arm brushed the table. He didn't see the way I kept swallowing down the nausea rising in my throat. He didn't hear the silence that was screaming between us. He didn't know. And part of me hated him for that. I should say something. I should break this silence. I should do anything but sit here, drowning in it. But my tongue feels heavy in my mouth. My throat is raw, like I've been screaming all night in a voice no one can hear. I glance at her again. She's still staring at her plate, barely blinking, barely breathing. But then, for just a second, she shifts. And our eyes meet. And in that moment, I know. We'll never talk about it. Not here. Not now. Maybe not ever. Because if we do, it'll become real. And neither of us can handle that. So we eat in silence. And it's the loudest silence I've ever heard. I try to act normal. I wake up. I go through the motions. I answer questions when I have to, I nod at the right moments, I laugh when I'm supposed to. But I can feel it unraveling. I can feel myself unraveling. Because nothing is normal anymore. And every time I close my eyes, I see it. Feel it. That moment. That touch. That whisper of something I still can't name. And every time I open my eyes, I see her. And she sees me. It's in the small things. The way she leaves the room the second I enter it. The way she keeps her distance, like I'm something dangerous. The way she avoids looking at me for too long, as if my face holds the proof of what we did. As if she can see it in my eyes. The thing we don't talk about. The thing we can't talk about. But the worst part? The worst part is the bathroom. I can't even look at it without feeling sick. Because that's where it happened. That's where it all changed. It used to just be a room. A space. A door, a mirror, a sink, a shower. Just a bathroom. But now. Now it's a reminder. A reminder of the moment everything shifted. A reminder of the moment we crossed a line neither of us can erase. A reminder of the way my heart pounded, the way my breath caught, the way I let something happen that should have never happened. And the mirror? The mirror is the worst part of all. Because every time I look into it, I see myself. And I don't recognize the person staring back at me. I thought I could pretend. I thought I could forget. But some things don't fade. Some moments cling to you like shadows. And no matter how hard you try to wash them away, they stay. I haven't spoken about it. Not to her. Not to anyone. It sits inside me like a heavy stone, pressing down, suffocating. And the worst part is, I don't even know what it is. Was it a mistake? Was it nothing? Was it something I made bigger in my head than it really was? Or was it real? Did I lead this on? Did I misunderstand? Or did I just lose everything? I keep replaying it in my head, over and over, like if I look at it from enough angles, I'll find a version that makes sense. A version that makes it okay. A version where I don't feel sick every time I think about it. But no matter how many times I go back, the ending is always the same. The way she looked at me. The way she touched me. The way I didn't move. And now, the way she won't look at me at all. I thought the worst part would be that moment. The way everything cracked apart in that bathroom, the way my world tilted on its axis. But I was wrong. The worst part is now. The silence. The shame. The questions that won't stop running through my head. Did I do something wrong? Did I let this happen? Or was it her? If I told someone, would they believe me? Or would they look at me the way I already look at myself, like I'm tainted, like I'm ruined, like I'm something wrong? And if I don't tell anyone, what does that make me? I don't know what's worse, the guilt, or the fact that sometimes, when I close my eyes, I remember how it felt. How warm her touch was. How, for one fleeting second, I didn't pull away. How my breath caught, not just from shock, but from something darker. Something I don't want to name. And I hate myself for that. I hate myself for all of it. Because I don't know who I am anymore. I keep thinking about that mirror. The way I looked at myself after it happened. The way I couldn't recognize my own face. It's still there. The bathroom. The place where it all happened. A few feet down the hall. The same room I've walked into 1,000 times before. But now it feels different. Now it feels like it's watching me. Mocking me. Daring me to go inside again. I haven't. I can't. Some lines, once crossed, can never be erased. And no matter how badly I want to, no matter how much I try to convince myself that I can forget, I know the truth. I will never be the same again. Have you ever had a moment that changed everything? A moment where the world you thought you knew, the people you trusted, the lines you never questioned, suddenly shifted. Where everything you believed about love, trust, and family, shattered in an instant. Because that's what happened to me. And I know I can't be the only one. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you know what it's like to look at someone you've known your whole life and suddenly feel like they're a stranger. To realize the things that were supposed to be safe, the people who were supposed to protect you, were the ones who hurt you the most. Maybe you've had a moment where you crossed a line, or worse, where someone crossed it with you. If you have, if you've ever found yourself in a situation you never saw coming, in a moment that left you questioning everything, tell me in the comments. Because maybe, just maybe, someone out there understands. And if you don't know what that feels like, if you've never had to carry a truth too heavy to speak, then let this be a reminder, not all betrayals come from strangers. Some wounds don't bleed where people can see them. Some scars aren't on the skin, but somewhere deeper. Somewhere no one else can touch. And sometimes, the worst part isn't what happened. It's what happens next. If this story made you feel something, if it made you think, if it made you question, if it made you remember, then like this video. Because the truth is, some stories aren't easy to hear. But that doesn't mean they don't need to be told. And subscribe to Shocking Infidelity Saga, because the things we bury, the secrets we keep, the truths too dark to say aloud, those are the stories that matter the most. Be careful who you trust. Because the deepest wounds are the ones you never expected.